Hello, people. Welcome back to another comments video by your good friend Chad Marco. I apologize ahead of time because I'm still a little sick. So if you hear me over here coughing and dying, then that's what it is. So let's get right to it. Let's not waste any time. So Cool Breeze 2.0 Mortal Mad Fast 13 says on the power imbalance of age gap relationships video, there's always someone trying to tell heterosexual men who to date. Single mothers, overweight women, trans women, old women, a never-ending line of women that feminists want to force men to date. 20 is old enough to do OnlyFans, but not old enough to choose who to date. And this always reminds me of what Kevin Samuels used to always say, rest in peace to the OG. He used to always say, women can dish it out, but they can't take it. And I think there's so much truth to that. In that, all the time, and I talked about this in that video, we see women online talk about what their standards are. A man gotta be this, he gotta do this, he gotta jump this high, have this much money, duck this low, be this skin. But then it's like the second men start holding women to a standard, all of a sudden there's an issue. When you start talking about their weight, like there were people who seriously criticized, going back to Kevin Samuels, there were people who seriously criticized him for just telling women that losing weight would be to your benefit in terms of dating. Like it's one of those, I wouldn't say like harsh realities, but it's a truth that, you would think people would be able to wrap their head around, but sometimes people are just too sensitive about it. And I think a lot of it is that women just aren't really put on the spot or held to standards often. And really, to be fair, now that I think about it, I feel like a lot of it is the fault of men because men just tend to have such low standards anyway. Like when you're overweight, a single mother, all these different things, and that's never really stop you from getting dates and getting sex, it can make you think that your shit doesn't stink. Whereas as a man, we can be rejected for so many different reasons, and so I think that's why we kind of embrace the necessity to change certain things or to make adjustments to our lives. But that's why I say, man, like you can't let people dictate what your standards are, who you would date. Like I've seen people even try to justify dating like BP demons and shit like that. I'm just like, what standard can a man have? What standard can a man have that isn't gonna get him in trouble? Like I feel like every single standard that I've seen a man set for himself in regards to women, I've seen it be criticized more than what I think is fair. And so RKKYMF7FE says on the power imbalance of age gap relationships video, women want guys who make more money. They want power imbalance, but argue against it. And I think this is so true when you really get specific about why girls tend to like older guys, because that, and like I said, when we say power imbalance, it always sounds bad because people tend to assume bad things, but you got to look at it from a woman's perspective. When she's around a man that's significantly more mature than her peers, that is more stable, that carries himself differently, like that is just going to make her feel more feminine. That's going to make her feel more endeared towards that older man, right? And I think that people, and I've always said this, and maybe some people will give me shit about this, but I feel like when women complain about the power imbalance, it's not so much what a man could do to the woman, it's what the woman can't do to the man. I think that a lot of women, they get to a point where they want to make sure that they have the power, that they can do certain things. And I think that, and I mentioned this in the video, right? And I think I use AMS as an example. He's an older man and he got money and he's successful in terms of like YouTube and whatnot. If a young woman comes into his life, she's not going to be able to run circles around this guy. This guy is sturdy like a tree rooted in the ground. Like she can't do anything. Like he's basically impervious to 99% of a young woman's bullshit. That doesn't mean that he's going to be a monster dominating her or taking advantage of her. But I think women do kind of understand that. And I think it does bother them that these age gap relationships are some of the few relationship dynamics where men actually do kind of have like a classical level of like old school power within the relationship. And so Bubblegum Babe 6629 says, people see it as a cult because how you behave isn't congruent with what you say. This is a prime indicator of what people are saying. Oh, so this was the somebody, you know, and this is typical. Somebody was saying that, you know, I'm not really happy. I'm coping with being a virgin. So that's where it came from. He continues, he said, you're essentially that Wojak meme with the Wojak wearing the smiley face mask over his true angry face. No one who doesn't care about something would talk about that something or lament about that something ad nauseum the way that you do. And I think this, it's kind of funny because I addressed this before, because you guys know that when it comes to the MGTOW community, and I think it's fair to say, like, as far as like my philosophy, I lean on that side, right? That's always been one of the biggest criticisms of the MGTOW community, right? You guys are going your own way, but you talk about women. And when I addressed that, I was saying that when people say stuff like that, that's a projection of what they expect MGTOW to be or what they want MGTOW to be, as opposed to what it really is. And so, like, look at exactly what he said. No one who doesn't care about something would talk about that something ad nauseum the way that you do. When did I ever in my 32 years of life said I don't care about women? When did I ever say I don't care about these various topics that I talk about on my channel? And you know, I feel like this is honestly just it's kind of bullshit, because when you look at content creators, right, it's clear that there are a lot of content creators that center their content around these different issues that are happening between men and women. You know, the sort of fracture or problems that we see. And you kind of see people attack it from different angles. You got, like, on one end, you got the red pill, the PUA community, right? And these guys, like, they'll talk about certain red pill truths, but from the angle of, okay, let's navigate this and figure it out. Let's still get pussy, even though women ain't shit, right? Then on the other side, you got, like, the black pill incel community, right? And they come at it from the perspective of lookism, genetic limiters, woe is me, it's impossible, it's over for you. Like, it's more like bleak and negative. But then I would say someone like myself, I'm more so on the MGTOW, Volcel, wizard side of things, where we're like, look, let's figure out how to be happy without engaging with dating for the most part, right? And so my thing is just this. Why can't I talk about these things when everybody else can? Why does my happiness mean that I can't talk about the subjects that are so much a part of who I am today and why I think the way that I do? Because one of the things that you see now is, like, you see these articles like, you know, let's talking about men not wanting to get married, men checking out of society. You see these articles about men, 60% of men are single, 30% of women are single. Like, talking basically, you see more people acknowledging the imbalances and the problems going on between men and women. And when you look at myself, even though I'm a happy person, I'm still very much a product of these problems. And so when people wonder, well, why do you talk about these things? But look, you can break it down. Look at the video like STD Girl. When you ask me why I'm not too excited about being out here chasing after girls, there goes a reason. Code approaching is a miserable experience. Again, why isn't he out here code approaching women? Well, here you go. A lot of the videos or the topics that I talk about is coming from the perspective of someone who decided to just take himself out of the game, but also someone that has been happy doing that. Now, see, one thing I will say, I can see if somebody looked at my music in a vacuum and based that opinion on that, because I do tend to lean into the sad boy, woe is me shit when I make my robot music. But I've always and already explained that that's always been an exaggeration of my feels and things like that. You know, in a sense, the robot music stuff is, you know, a lot of that is me and real, but a lot of that is exaggerated just for, you know, to create the, you know, that particular vibe that's in line with, you know, what's inspired that music and my channel. But the point is, I just feel like me being happy does not mean that I can't talk about these things. I think people just kind of have to accept that, you know, a significant part of my channel has been inspired by R9K, 4chan culture, and things like that. When you look at like How to Be a NEET, the robot music, me talking about girls, all these things are in line with that. So again, if you think about it, it is congruent. It's just not in congruence with what people want me to be. I'm not that. I like girls. I like talking about girls. I give a fuck about these different issues. I'm fascinated by it. And I've made that a significant part of what my channel is about. And so Severed Everlasting World Lore says on the age gap power imbalance video, both people in an age gap relationship know what they're doing the majority of the time, whether it's for money, status, lust, a fetish, or some weird father figure replacement thing. When the older man is manipulating and grooming the younger woman, you'd usually be able to tell. Personally, I couldn't be with a younger woman, though to begin with, I'm not even into relationships like that. And I'm not particularly fond of taking care of children that aren't mine. I just want someone to hang out with from time to time. So I prefer an older woman if you reverse it, or those around my age. In this sense, I can sort of understand why many women want men that would take care of their every need or go for older men, though they often don't realize that it means submission, similar to as if they were a child. And I think, you know, Sever brings up some good points here. You know, he says he's the type of guy, you know, he's not into that type of relationship dynamic where he's like the stoic tree, right, or a rock, and the girl is kind of cute floating around him like a fairy or some shit like that. Like he wants more of a, I guess, like someone that he feels like is closer to his wavelength. You know, I was just laying out in the video how for a lot of guys, they don't need that sort of equal partnership shit. You know, it's they, as far as like gathering life experiences and traveling and working, they feel like, and they're content with doing that thing, doing stuff like that for themselves. So they don't expect a woman to be able to, or they don't expect women to be able to match them in those areas. They're content with a woman just kind of riding their wave, even if there is like a certain gap of maturity or life experience there. But I think one of the problems, and I've talked about this before, as far as like dating, now maybe I'm just older than you, but you know, it's not, and I gotta lay this out, it's not that I'm against dating older women. The way I see it, if I like you, I like you. If a woman is 28, 32, 36, if I like what I see, I like what I see. But for me, it's more so about like at my age, realistically, I'm probably not gonna find a woman that is going to not have one of the things that would be a non-negotiable for me. That's my, and what I mean is like, okay, and we don't even have to go too low, but like think about like where I live in the black community, and black women where I'm from, they don't do that weird white women shit where they freeze their eggs and put their career first. Like a lot of black women, even if they go on to start taking education seriously and get a career or a good job, a lot of times they have one or two kids young. Like if not, when they're in their late teens and in their early 20s, it's really unusual to find a older black woman. And when I say older, I mean like post 25 that does not have kids. And that's going to be one of the biggest reasons why I think it's unlikely that if I ever have sex, if I ever start dating, that it's going to be with someone my age. Cause I can't imagine. In fact, it's kind of funny. I go to Food Line, right? And that's a grocery store in my town. And there's this woman in there and she got a fat ass. I'm gonna just be frank. But I could look at her and tell that she's kind of older. Like she's like mid 20s or so. She might be a bit older than that. I got a better look at her recently. But, you know, based off what I can see, She was like I mean, she was in her mid-20s or so. And then, you know me, I'm not being nosy. I just be paying attention when people are talking. I remember one day I went in there and I heard her talking to one of her coworkers, and she started talking about her son. And I was like, well, that one ain't gonna work. Not like I was gonna talk to her anyway, but still, you know, it just kind of like how I just take inventory of the women that are around and shit like that. But I mean, just again, just an example, like I see someone who's like probably closer to my age, and boom, she got a kid. And it's like that every time. I can't remember a time I met a girl that was attractive, black, over 25, and didn't have kids. And that's why I think I foresee if I ever do date, it's probably with someone younger. Black Cell Neat says on the same video, very high IQ video, Chad. People only look at the evil part from it and not the good it could generate, like you said. And I think in the video, I compared it to the power imbalance of like the physicality of a man, and how a man's physical strength can make a woman feel more secure, how he can use that physical strength to protect her. And but also on the other side of that coin, how many men have used that physical power to intimidate women, to scare women and beat them into submission. And so a power imbalance, like I said, is not an inherently bad thing. It's about how that power is used. And I think people that they default to always thinking that guy is going to use that to manipulate or take advantage of the woman, not realizing, and the best way I can put it is that most of the time when you see these AIDS got relationships, it's two freaky motherfuckers who just want to have fun. You got a freaky younger woman who ain't no stranger to dick, and you got a freaky older man that want him some young pussy, and they have fun together. Maybe that power imbalance is there, but it's not what I don't think is what people assume it to be most of the time, as much as it's a projection of what they don't like. And so Afro Soul Edit says on the donating plasma video, fun fact, majority of American blood goes to other countries like China and the continent of Europe, which is made in research for new medications that benefits only those regions in the world. Americans get nothing back. Nikimo Sabi says based in blood pill. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Look, if I ever told you that I went in there thinking I'm about to save my fellow Americans, if I don't care where the blood was going. I ain't give a fuck what they were doing. I don't care, they were cloning motherfuckers. I just wanted my damn money. But the thing now, what I heard that's even more interesting is how much money they get for it versus how much they pay you. Now, I asked the lady who works in there, and she broke it down. She was like, yeah, they get way more money for the blood than what they give you guys, but you got to remember, they got to pay for the shipment of the plasma. They got to pay the employees. Like, she broke down all the expenses of just the whole the process, running the machines, the buildings, and all that. And I was like, okay, but still, I seriously doubt, if you really crunch the numbers and break it down, I seriously doubt that it's a fair amount that they're giving to people. That's just me. She did a good job of breaking down the expenses, but I seriously doubt that they couldn't give us more. I think it's more so that they don't want to give us more. And so Meza FR says, on the code approaching is a miserable experience video, code approaching sucks if you know you're not attractive enough to see any results. And that's a good point. That's a very good point. If you're a guy and you know you're attractive and you've had success with it, I don't know if I clarified that in the video, but yeah, if you're a guy and you're more attractive and you know you can make it work, then it's not that bad. What code approaching means and what it is definitely depends so much on the individual himself. The more attractive you are and the more positive experiences you've managed to accumulate from it, then it's not going to be that bad. And even like the more awkward, embarrassing moments will be outweighed by the amount of success you have. And when I say success, it doesn't even have to mean like you fucked the girl. It could just be like, oh, I have a boyfriend, but they responded to you so positively. Like, I saw this video on Twitter where this guy, he asked out this girl who was walking on the beach, and she was like, no, I think she said she had a husband. Yeah, she had a husband. But she still sat there and talked with him for like a minute and 30. Like, they had a good ass conversation. And so a situation like that, you know, and you could tell like he was taller than her and shit like that. I don't know how attractive he was, but still, you know, I think code approaching is, the experience is going to be, does have a lot to do with who you are as a person. But you guys got to remember, I talk about things from my perspective. And even though I don't think I'm like necessarily physically repulsive, I know I'm very weird, and I can be off-putting to girls. So I know that for me, code approaching would just not be it. And I think for especially guys who are less attractive, yeah. And so Mala Chick 780 says on the "Why I'm Voting for Donald Trump" video, can't wait for the fallout in the US when you vote in Trump again. The guy is far right, Nazi sympathizing dictator. And it seems only obvious to those outside the US, sitting here with my popcorn 4,000 miles away. Dude, what? We had four years of man, maybe because you're not here, you don't see it. You know, so I'm laughing at how I put the MAGA hat on my thumbnail. But maybe, look, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because you were not here and you don't live here in America. But let me tell you, frankly, bro, America was better when Donald Trump was president. And people can say what they want about me, but I've never been like a Donald Trump dick rider. I barely cared about politics before all this shit. When Donald Trump won, the only thing I was excited about was that I knew people were gonna shit their pants and be more upset than what was justified because of the media narratives saying stuff like that. Nazi, far right, dictator, all this shit. I knew people were gonna just be, and it was just that. It was 4 years of people crying and bitching and this and that, but then nothing of significance actually happened as far as anything bad. Then President Biden, or Biden becomes president, and things literally, objectively, observably got worse. And I remember when they became president, the only thing I felt, I said they, but when Biden became president and Kamala became vice president, the only thing I felt was like, damn, the fun is over. Right now we got another boring president. I wasn't even sitting there like, oh, they're gonna ruin America. Trump was so great. I was just like, okay, well, no more people bitching and entertaining me. Biden becomes president. Dude, I'm telling you, again, maybe because you're not here, so much shit got worse. And I don't know the exact numbers. I've seen the little pictures that illustrate these things, but rent got higher, groceries got higher, gas got higher. Pretty much everything, fucking everything went up in terms of prices. Then on top of that, we had the immigration crisis. And I know for a fact, and I talked about this, when Biden became president, they executed over 34 executive orders that contributed to opening the borders and allowing more people in. They were busing them in, flying them in, shipping them in. This is the facts. Then they bring them in and they accommodate these people. We're seeing receipts where these motherfuckers got $13,000 in food stamps. Last time I went to get food stamps, I couldn't get food stamps. And then on top of that, these wars start popping off. And I'm not going to, blame Biden directly for that. But who knows how these things work in terms of when one side is in power over the other. A lot of people just say and point to the fact there were no wars going on when Trump was president. Now when Biden is president, and it's so funny because that's what people warned about Trump. He was supposed to be the World War III president, and it was damn near Biden. Now, not only that, I gotta cook, bro. I gotta let you know what's up. This is my last point I'm gonna make, and this is so important, bro. Biden is in such bad shape mentally. He's going through so much mental and physical decline that they switched him out for Kamala to go against Trump. Think about that. This man has been exhibiting these signs. It ain't like he just woke up and the next day he was suffering from fucking dementia. People like myself have been seeing this for like the past 3 years at least. The man's too old, and this guy has been running the country. Think about that. This man has been running the country for the past few years, and now we've just accepted that this guy is not fit to run again. But what does that say about the time that he's been fucking president running shit in this state? Bro, I'm just now that all that being said, I'm not saying Trump is gonna be the God savior of America. I'm just saying it's simple comparison. When Trump was president, America was better, period. It was just people hated him so much that they stressed themselves out. And now we got real stress and people still can't see past the bullshit. And so Zerman Man 9891 says on the Making Peace with Having a Small Penis video, what size would you say is problem territory? It's a good question. I would say probably like five and below. Like 5 and below. Like, cause I'm not trying to be like super doom and gloom about this shit. I'm not trying to be super negative about it. I'll put it like this. If I had a 6-inch dick, right? Let's say I was 6 inches and had okay girth, I wouldn't be worried. And it's not to say like every girl is gonna be okay with that, but to me, that's probably a good medium. But I feel like once you hit 5 and below, I think that's when you're going to start running more into women who are not going to be satisfied. And you're definitely not going to get like those positive reactions over your dick. Like you just got a regular dick around like 5 and 6 and whatnot. But yeah, I would say starting at 5 and going down, I think that's the problem area. And so Gombo-san says on Chad Marco's Mini Forum, Mini PC Review, impressive how fast you managed to save up for a PC. I also used to have a terrible laptop as my main PC for years when I was young, so I can relate to your struggle. It was such a great feeling to finally get a decent PC after years of dealing with a piece of junk. Sometimes I even had to place a fan next to my laptop to stop it from overheating. Most games should run straight out of the box, especially newer titles. It's just those Bethesda games that have lots of bugs and need tinkering and mods. I actually learned most of my IT skills simply from having to deal with getting PC titles to run properly back in the day. So some good came out of it. And so the way I saved up for this, I know it's pretty damn impressive. It cost like $600 and it was different things. Now a lot of that money came from donating plasma. I started donating plasma. Another thing too, I was doing more jobs for my mom, like mowing the lawn, doing different yard work, just anything she needed me to do, I was going ahead and doing it. And instead of spending that money, I was saving it up. I sold a few games at Traded, and just really anytime I could get some money, I just held on to it instead of spending it. And that's how I was able to get the money up. And my mom, she kicked in the last 100. So I basically saved up like 500 myself, and my mom kicked in the last 100. But yeah, it was a combination of just doing odd jobs and saving that plasma money, man, and selling a few things. But yeah, man, this this computer has been a real game changer. Like, you know, now the honeymoon phase is kind of over. And I've had, pretty much a whole summer just to enjoy it and get used to it. But yeah, this is an amazing piece of hardware right here. And I'm going to do my best to take care of it because, I mean, it's without a doubt the most valuable tech that I have. And, I still got my laptop on the side here. I use it, for different things still, like holding my webcam and downloading porn. But, really the main thing that's wrong with my laptop now that is finally retired is that the charging port, you know, where you put like the cord, the power cord, like that's kind of fucked up. So I got to rig it up so that it stays charged up and shit like that. But I got a nice, basically got a nice little setup. And you know, I've been enjoying, and this is the funny thing, right? This is the funny thing about this shit. So I get this quote unquote gaming PC. But if you think about it, most of the games I've been playing have been like PS2, like PS2 emulator games. Now, of course, I can play more high-end modern games, maybe not on the highest settings, but I can play a lot of newer games too. But I swear, dude, like when I say that I was never able to have like a PS2 emulator work, I'm serious. And so this is before I even get into playing newer games, I gotta burn through some of those PS2 titles that I was never able to play as a kid, man. And so PlayStation Games Daily says on the broke people should not reproduce video, Naruto has a legacy. He went from a nobody outcast to Hokage. That's a legacy. Even Orochimaru as a villain had a legacy. He killed the third Hokage, unlocked immortality, and mastered a bunch of jutsu. But us, we are not Iruka Sensei level. We are not even a ramen shop guy. We aren't even Tenshin level. Even though she got 10 minutes of airtime in the entire series, she's still a woman and has her looks. But us, we are just a bunch of average dudes nobody would turn twice to look at. And to top it all off, we are broke. So Naruto, even though he's an anime character, he is a good example of someone that I would say should reproduce, right? He has a legacy. He paid his dues, he built something, and his children are in position to inherit something of value based on the path that he paid for them. And I know, you know, this is kind of a controversial take, can be a controversial video, but I'm not an anti-natalist. I just feel like people should have a standard when they reproduce. I don't like how people are content to struggle and to have their kids be born into struggle. Like for me, and you know, just keeping this on anime, I forgot when this was, but this was in Dragon Ball Z, and I think Vegeta was about to fight somebody. I forgot, maybe it was Kid Buu or Janemba. I forgot what it was, but I think he said something like I might die or I might get killed. If I do, I deserve. I forgot what it was, so don't quote me on that. It was something like that, like I might get killed, but if I do, I deserve it. And then Goku was like, "Don't say that, man." But what, even like, it's so dark what he said, but I kind of understood where he was coming from, and it's because he set that standard for himself. Like, if I die in this battle, don't cry for me, don't weep for me. If I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't strong enough. And that's kind of how I look at reproducing. If I'm not good enough to reproduce, then it is what it is. Don't cry for me, don't weep for me or nothing. If I can't live up to the standard that I set for myself where I would be comfortable having kids, I just feel like I don't deserve it. If I can't do it, if I can't carve out a path of meaningful success in this life, why am I going to put that on my children to do what I couldn't do? That's the standard that I hold for myself. So Uni San Ain Galaxy Studio, I like that name, says when I'm missing out on Young Love video, I'm 28, missed out on teen love in my 20s. I basically give up. When I was in high school, I look into the sky and see myself in my 20s as a loner, depressed and empty. It's scary how I got all this right. Now I'm looking at the night sky, looking at my 30s where I no longer exist. Hopefully, since I got my 20s right, my 30s will be the same. Oh God, that's terrible. Looking at my 30s where I no longer exist. Yeah, you ain't got to go out like that. But I see what he's saying though, because with me it was kind of the same way in terms of correctly predicting that I more than likely would not have a girlfriend, more than likely would not be sexually active. I pretty much foresaw these things going into my late teens. I would say like 17, 18, 19. And I think most of it was really just came from understanding that I wasn't the type of guy that could attract the girls that I like. Not saying I had crazy high standards, but you just know how it is. You know, if I'm a 5, I'm not worth a woman that's a 5 just because I'm a 5. Shit like that. But also because I knew that I wasn't going to be putting effort into it. That was one of the main things. I knew I would not be trying. The only thing that I thought might make it so it wouldn't turn out like this was that I kind of also predicted that I would get an opportunity not even doing anything. And that happened a few times, but every time that happened, it just wasn't the right opportunity. It was always something wrong with it. Typically, I just wasn't attracted to the girl. But yeah, it is kind of interesting when you going into your 20s and you just know. You get the sense like I'm not gonna have that. I'm definitely not gonna have those experiences without some sort of miracle or something crazy happening. And you know, shit, I correctly predicted it. Now, for the last part, you know, now I'm not suicidal or anything like that. So I've learned to make peace with it. So that's the difference between me and him. But I do get kind of predicting, you know, how the dice fall, so to speak. Also, so this is kind of funny. I asked the question, how would Chad Marco do on the Pop the Balloon dating show? So if you guys don't know, there's like this new like online speed dating show. Kind of similar to the Pineapple Show, but it's all done like in studio where all the people are there. And basically what happens is you have like a handful of guys or a handful of girls, and then a member of the opposite sex walks in. And if the people like the person, then they keep their balloon unpopped. If that person does or says anything they don't like, then they pop the balloon. So essentially it's like that balloon is almost like the pineapple, right? So it's like you pop the balloon, pineapple, or rejection. And so I asked, what do you guys think would happen if I went up there? And then so JB Ritchie says it'll be funny as hell. Sin Tova says, the way they're going to do you, we're going to have to call the hospital. Mark Rudy says, you would probably do better than that guy, to be honest. Maybe. Andrew Chuang says, they're going to roast the fuck out of you. Kimo Sabi says, never heard of it, but I'd imagine you would get first place. Watch this Abba and Peach video on this interaction. Okay, so, and it's funny because I asked a friend recently what they thought, and they said the same thing. They said 20 pops. I'm gonna get pop. Every one of them gonna pop. But yeah, I would love to go on that show because I know I'm gonna get popped up. But I also think it would just be hilarious, especially if I got the opportunity to talk and express myself a little bit and show my personality. I think that would be very cool. But yeah, I would get popped up for sure. And so Dosh Pitt says on the broke people should not reproduce video, define broke. Are you talking about people who are working class generally, or people who just don't have disposable income? It kind of depends. Because I don't want to just shit on like anybody. Like just for like if you're a plumber, for instance, and actually plumbers make decent money. But I would say I draw the line where you gotta be making decent money to the point where you got thousands saved up. Like, if there was gonna be like just for instance, like some type of emergency, you can deal with just about any emergency. Your son breaks his arm, you got the money for that. If you're working a job and they say you got to take the COVID-19 vaccine and you don't want to, you got fuck you money to say, well, I'm gonna just go somewhere or do something else. Like, I'm thinking in terms of like having enough money to where you got life mobility and you can deal with a crisis when it pops up. Definitely not paycheck to paycheck though. But I would say someone where you make enough money to where you can deal with most crises that pop up. At the very least. And so MSA93 says on the Making Peace with Having a Small Penis video, the things that have ruined your life in the West are pornographic films and the large number of sexual relationships your women have outside of marriage. For this reason, your women will not enjoy their natural sizes and will continue to compare you to the sizes of others. Well, yeah, you know, that's part of what we get when we, you know, open up the floodgates for women to, you know, fucking suck however they want. You know, it allows them to have that comparison. And, you know, I always got to say this to be clear. I'm not an anti-feminist or anything like that. I like people being free to do what they want. I like women being free to live how they want. I just think this is just one of those unintended consequences of that, is that when you allow women to freely fucking suck how they want to, they're going to have those experiences. They're going to have those Chad, bad boy, Brad experiences. And then the guys they end up with later, their husband, their boyfriends and whatnot, are just not going to be able to compare. It's like, how do you compare? Like, and yeah, think about this shit. Imagine a woman in college and she's hooking up with like basketball players or football players and shit like that. Like, these guys are genetic freaks. 1 in a million tier men in terms of their genetics, how high they can jump, how fast they can run, how strong they are, hand-eye coordination, all this shit. And women can go to college and have sex with guys like that. And then they got to go back to the real world, and then they run into guys like me, right? Or like pudgy, balding white dudes. Like, I'm telling you, like, that will mind fuck you. And but yeah, that's one of the consequences of, you know, people being free to fucking suck how they want to, is that you're gonna be compared to damn near every guy she's ever been with. And so Sleeper 9638 says on the power imbalance of age gap relationships part 1, there's not that much of a power imbalance when the average 20-year-old woman has more relationship experience and power than the average man of any age. And then P8Q says, true, my sister at 20 has like 5 exes versus my 1 ex at 25, with whom I had a relationship with in the past year. In terms of life experience, I'm equivalent to a 14-year-old. And then Tristan responds, he says, relationship inequality. It's a real serious issue society doesn't want to talk about. Feminists go on about inequality, but the moment you tell about what I said, it falls on deaf ears. This makes me think about this video I was watching. It was a Coach Greg Adams video. And he was watching this woman who was being interviewed, and she was an OnlyFans model. And I think she was like 23, 25, something like that. And she was just telling her whole life story, right? And it all kind of, like, as far as like her sexual experiences, it all kind of started when she was like a teenager. I guess around like 15, maybe 14 and 16. And I think by the time she was 18, she had a 30-year-old sugar daddy. So she was 18. I think she had ran away from home, or she had issues with her mom. And so she was living with a 30-year-old man. And basically the whole interview, she was just talking about the different experiences that led to her being an OnlyFans model, her different relationships, and in particular how being an OnlyFans model and having all that money allowed her to do so much, as far as like just hanging with the wrong crowds and people using her and shit like that. But what Coach Greg Adams said in that video that I think is so true, he was like, y'all got to understand, these women, by the time they're 25 or whatever, they've already lived 3 or 4 lives. They've lived more than than a lot of us can imagine. And you know, a lot of that is not to say it's their fault. They're just living life based on what's available to them, based on the experiences that are available to them. You know, shit, it's not their fault that they can get picked up at 18 by a 30-year-old and be taken care of. It's not their fault they can make thousands of dollars on OnlyFans and all this shit, which is going to allow them to travel and meet all these people and be in all these different relationships. It's just what women have available to them, and what men have to generally fight and strive for if you're not just genetically lucky. right? And so that's why this is such a good point when you talk about how the average 20-year-old woman has more relationship experience than the guy of shit, even going up into 20s and 30s, because they're not going to go through the same problems that we do. You're not going to see too many attractive women that are virgins going into their 20s and mid 20s and late 20s, 30s and shit like that, like you will see with guys. But just to reiterate, I'm not saying it like it's their fault. It is what it is. All these things are available to women freely. So of course they're going to take it, much like we would take it. You know, if I was 14 and 15 and the girls that I like me, I wouldn't be a virgin today. More than likely, but those things weren't available to me. So I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna do my own thing. But girls, they don't have those same limitations. So they're going to take what's available to them, and that creates a situation where they do have more relationship and sexual experiences than a lot of men that are their age or even older than them. So that's the last comment. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you on the next video. So, Johnny.